There comes a moment in every barbecue hero's journey where you have to bite the bullet and invite people over. And today is that day. And I'm not talking about an extravagant theme or anything too difficult, but we are going to take some backyard barbecue classics and elevate them in a way that makes you excited and confident to have people over and feed your friends. We're gonna start with a Santa Maria style grilled tri-tip. It is a simple steak dinner, but it feels a little bit elevated. We're making a homemade focaccia. Don't run away or be scared. This is one of the easiest breads to make from scratch, and we're gonna be doing it on the grill. We're finishing things up with a beautiful marinated tomato salad. Simple, delicious, elegant, elevated, but not in a way that feels fussy.
I love hosting people in the backyard.
The simplest side dishes of all time. Basically, all you have to do here is be able to cut things, and I believe you are capable. We're gonna start by slicing our red onion. Raw red onions are really sharp, but I have a trick for making them not only palatable, but really enjoyable when used in a salad application. So we're gonna slice our onion in half first, take off the end, and then we're gonna slice the onions very thin along the natural lines of the onion itself. This will help the onion not taste quite as sharp, and the thin slices will make them a little bit easier to eat. But on top of how we're slicing the onions, how we're treating the onions has a lot to do with the final flavor. So once our onions are sliced, I've got a bowl of cold water. And I'm going to simply submerge my onion slices in this cold water for 5 to 10 minutes. It's really easy, but it's gonna draw out a lot of the punchiness of those red onions. Really nice, thin, beautiful shreds of onion. Now we gotta prep our tomatoes. We have a beautiful selection of tomatoes. These little tiny cherry tomatoes, you can get in season almost year round. I also have some gorgeous heirloom tomatoes in a variety of colors. A mix of flavors and textures here is what's gonna make this salad interesting. So this part, like I said, is just a little bit of chopping. I'm gonna do these mixed tomatoes in halves and then take my larger heirloom tomatoes and just cut them into small bite-sized wedges. All right, editors, cue our tomato cutting montage music. I think a lot of people default to a serrated knife when they're cutting tomatoes because the skins can be a little bit difficult to get through. If that works for you, that's totally fine, or just make sure you're working with a nice sharp knife and it will get through those tomato skins, no problem. That feels like a beautifully sufficient amount of tomatoes. I'm actually serving this salad in a 9x13 pan. The ridges on the edge will hold in the dressing, gives me the opportunity to stir the tomatoes and make sure everything's really well distributed. It's already so colorful and so beautiful, and it's literally just tomatoes. Let's make our dressing. Super simple pantry ingredients, some good quality olive oil. Usually expeller pressed olive oil is what you're looking for. Then some balsamic vinegar, a little bit of honey, some kosher salt, and some cracked black pepper. I did go a little bit heavy on the salt. The salt is doing more than just seasoning the tomatoes. It's actually helping impact the texture of the tomatoes. So by mixing our dressing and adding this to the tomatoes now, the salt is gonna draw out some of the moisture from the tomatoes themselves. That tomato juice is going to add even more liquid to the dressing, and the salt's going to firm up those tomatoes. It will give them a better texture as they sit in the refrigerator. The next ingredient is fresh basil. You could technically use dried here, but I feel like fresh basil is so readily available at the grocery store now. If you've never sliced basil before, we're gonna give you a little tip. It's quite easy. Chiffonade. It's a French term for prepping basil. You take your wide basil leaves, roll them into a tight little bundle, and then slice them nice and thin. It essentially gives you ribbons of basil. We're gonna stack our basil leaves, and then we're going to roll them very tightly before slicing into thin strips. This is called a chiffonade of basil. It sounds very fancy, but essentially what we're doing is preventing the basil from bruising, so that when you're eating your salad, you're getting the freshest bite of basil every time you get a piece. Okay, start by taking your soaked onions and just letting them drain. We're not too worried about drying them completely. And toss them into your tomatoes. Next, we're gonna go in with the dressing and just pour it right over the top of your tomatoes. Last up, sprinkle on your basil. And again, you can measure with your heart here. If you love a lot of basil, absolutely use as much as you want. We're gonna give this a little mix, and then it goes into the refrigerator for the next 30 minutes to an hour. This smells so good. The balsamic, the basil, the red onions, the tomatoes. So pretty.
It's crazy to think I can pull all this off in my backyard.
I wish you could be here in person. You can absolutely make bread from scratch on your grill, and it is easier than you think. This focaccia was actually one of the first doughs that I started making outside and cooking on my grill. It is the easiest entertaining bread. It is so delicious, and you're gonna come back to this one over and over again. And it starts very simply. We've got some warm water, some yeast, and some sugar. We're just gonna mix it in our measuring cup to activate the yeast. After a couple of minutes, your yeast will start to turn foamy and bubbly. That's how you know the yeast is activated, and you're ready to make bread. So you'll know your yeast is alive as it starts to dissolve. Oh, I just got one. It'll go bloop up at the top and start to bubble and foam. Can you see this? It's exploding across the top of my measuring cup. That is a sure sign that my yeast is alive, it's active, it's happy because I fed it a little bit of sugar, and we're ready to make bread. To the bowl of my stand mixer, I'm gonna add my sugar and activated yeast mixture. I'm also going to add my first cup of bread flour. Now, bread flour is a little bit different than all-purpose flour, giving you a better texture, crumb, and crust in your dough. I'm also going to add in some kosher salt and olive oil. Focaccia relies heavily on olive oil, both to keep it moist and as a flavor enhancer for the dough itself. We're gonna raise our bowl, start the mixing process until everything is incorporated. If any flour gets stuck on the side of the pan, just scrape it with a little rubber spatula. The goal for this first mix is to get out most of the clumps of flour and really just evenly distribute our yeast through the base of the dough. Once the base is nice and smooth, we're gonna add in the remaining bread flour. This is about an additional cup and a half of bread flour to the cup we already have in there. I'm also going to fortify it with flavor. So I'm adding in some whole rosemary leaves and some crushed red pepper flakes. You don't usually get a lot of heat in bread, but a little bit of spice I have found is really nice, and it makes the bread more interesting. Back to the mixer. We're just gonna stir until the flour and ingredients are fully incorporated and the dough starts to lightly pull away from the sides. Honestly, with the smells coming out of this mixer bowl, it makes me feel like I'm in a bakery in Italy or a Tuscan hillside or something. Now, mixing the dough takes 2 to 3 minutes until it's all incorporated, and usually during that time I just find myself drifting off to Italy and the vision of like the Tuscan countryside and the smell of rosemary and fresh baked bread. It's unbelievable. Dough is mixed. You can see this is a pretty elastic dough, exactly what we're looking for, but it doesn't necessarily stick to my fingers. And honestly, that was very simple to make. Cover this bowl with plastic wrap, set a timer, and let it raise in a warm part of your kitchen, or if it's warm enough outside, just leave it out here for about an hour until it's doubled in size. Let's talk about tri-tip. It is one of my favorite cuts of beef. It is time for the main event. I've got a beautiful tri-tip. This one's almost 3 pounds, incredibly well marbled, and that's what we're looking for in a great tri-tip. We want these nice, beautiful white striations of fat. Before I start cooking, I want you to look at how the tri-tip sits. On this side, the grain is running in this direction. As we get towards the tail, the grain is running this direction. This isn't important right now in terms of how we cook it, but it will come into play later when we're slicing it. It's always great to make note of it before you start cooking. We're gonna season this tri-tip very simply. My beef rub, or you can use equal parts salt, pepper, and garlic powder. We're keeping the seasoning simple so that the flavor of the beef can really shine. We're also enhancing this tri-tip with a California-inspired mop, which is a kind of wet lacquer that gets painted on the meat while it's cooking. Don't be afraid to be a little bit heavy-handed with the rub. Tri-tips are about twice as thick as your typical steak. So you can think about maybe using twice as much seasoning as you would on a typical single steak. The particular cooking method for a Santa Maria style of tri-tip involves flipping it multiple times. And we'll be flipping our meat on the grill every 6 to 8 minutes. So going a little heavy-handed with the seasoning now is important because we will lose some of it during the cooking process. So don't be afraid to be incredibly liberal at this point. I'm happy with how the tri-tip is seasoned. I'm gonna set this aside, kind of let some of the salt start to pull out a little bit of moisture in the tri-tip while we talk about our mopping liquid and how we're setting up the grill. Our mopping liquid is incredibly simple. Some olive oil, some red wine, some red wine vinegar, and some crushed garlic cloves. Tri-tip season, mop is ready. Let's talk about our grill setup really quickly. I'm running this tri-tip on a charcoal grill, setting our grill up for 2-zone cooking, which means high heat coals on one side, no coals on the other side, and this sweet zone in the middle where we get a lot of beautiful ambient heat. And we're gonna spend a majority of our time kind of in that sweet middle zone. And every time we flip, we're going to baste with this beautiful mop sauce. We will be cooking our tri-tip to medium rare, about 130 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a triangular shaped cut that was really popularized in the Santa Maria region of California. Ranchers and butchers there really prized this tri-tip. Ambient temperature on my grill is about 400 to 450 degrees right now. Tri-tip is seasoned. We're gonna go right in the middle of the grates here, in between searing over the high heat coals and the totally indirect side where there are no coals. I'm going to close the lid, and then every 6 to 8 minutes, we're going to flip and baste and flip and baste. Total cook time at 400 to 450 degrees is usually around 30 minutes. Keep your internal thermometer close because you don't want to miss this and overcook it. It's 2 to 3 pounds. It feeds a handful of people, so it's great for a small gathering, gives you a sense of a really elevated dinner party vibe, but it has incredible beefy flavor, like a really high-end steak. Oh. Now after about 30 minutes, my tri-tip is running right between 125 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I'm gonna finish this off over the high heat side. It's going to cook very quickly, probably 2 to 3 more minutes per side, and then carryover cooking will take me up to about 135. This is gonna be fun. So sizzly. Tri-tip is beautiful, crispy, crunchy, seared. Now I do have to let it rest. I don't wanna cut into this for at least 10 to 15 minutes. A big cut like this is gonna continue cooking while it sits on the cutting board, and I wanna let that whole process finish. Now I have a version of the dough that's got a nice, beautiful, bubbly dough. This is ready for our next step. So So I've got a 9x13 glass pan. You could also do this in a cast iron skillet if you wanted. Drizzle the bottom of this pan very liberally with olive oil. I told you we were gonna be using a lot of olive oil today. I actually don't know if there's such a thing as too much olive oil when it comes to making focaccia. It's part of the flavor, but also a huge piece of the texture. Now I just gently transfer this first time risen dough. You can see how well the yeast was activated in this, into the pan with the olive oil. Even a little bit of olive oil on your hands is great. And then gently spread the dough out. We don't want to squish it flat. We want to keep these air bubbles in there, but just gently spread it out to the corners of the pan. Now this is what gives focaccia its signature look and texture. You take your oiled fingertips and you press them into the dough all the way down to the bottom of the pan. Really get in there and create these dimples. These dimples are going to fill with the oil and the cheese, and it creates the most delicious nooks and crannies and peaks and valleys. Perfect. Now because we love extra flavor, I'm going to sprinkle the top with some shredded Parmesan cheese. I don't think there's such a thing as too much cheese unless you're hearing one of Todd's dad jokes. Also gonna top this with some nice flaky salt. I'm using a good coarse ground kosher salt here. Again, texture, flavor, texture, flavor. Now cover this again with plastic wrap. Put it back in that warm place in your kitchen and give it 1 more hour to rise. We're now 2 hours into our focaccia process and look at this dough. This is our big reveal. You can see all of the dimples we made, but it's doubled in size. Now this is going on the pellet smoker. I think these are the best for baking. Great indirect heat. It'll hold temperature at 350 degrees. This dough takes about 15 to 20 minutes to bake, and that cheese will be melted and delicious. We're gonna leave this on the smoker. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes at 350 degrees. I'll start checking at 15 because I don't wanna overbake it.
This is a great meal for the backyard.
Our bread is warm off the smoker. The backyard smells amazing. It's time to slice this tri-tip and get ready to head to the table. Remember how we looked at the grain and how it ran 2 different directions? Now it's important because that ties into how we slice. Starting at the pointed thin end, we're just gonna go straight across. Now you can slice as thin or as thick as you like. You could go incredibly thin if you wanted to put this on sandwiches, or you can go a little bit thicker like I'm going to do when it comes to serving it for a meal. It feels a little bit more substantial. Anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick is great. Now, 130 to 135, we'll have this beautiful warm pink center. Exactly what I'm looking for in terms of doneness. And you can see the grain has just started to turn on this last slice. That means it's time for me to adjust my slicing direction. So I'm just gonna take this big piece on the end, turn it 90 degrees, and keep slicing all the way through. Look at that. The nice part about arranging this also is that I can steal a piece off of the end and no one will know that I have taken one. That is so flavorful. You get that kiss of red wine and garlic on the outside, but what really comes through is that beefy flavor from the tri-tip. It's rich, it's delicious. The focaccia's cooled off enough to handle. I do like these to be a little bit more substantial pieces. Now you can serve these right out of the pan, but I'm actually gonna take them out and put them into a beautiful bread basket. But I wanted to show you the inside of this bread. It is fluffy, it is squishy, it is crunchy on the bottom and the sides from the olive oil. You can see the flecks of rosemary and the red pepper flakes. All the olive oil on the bottom of the bread makes it lacy and golden brown. And I may accidentally also eat this bread before we go over there. They won't count, they'll never know. tomatoes are marinated, steak is sliced, bread is done. Let's head to the table. I think sometimes people assume barbecue is big cuts, big meats, elbows on the table, greasy fingers, but there's also a way to utilize cooking outdoors and fire in a way that's a little bit more refined, and that's what we're leaning into today. A little bit more of the cultured side of backyard barbecue. Hi!
Chairs that I was thinking.
Yeah.
These are fantastic chairs. They're good chairs.
Thank you for noticing my chairs.
They're like solid. They're not gonna get blown away.
They're sturdy chairs. Grab some food, help yourselves. I don't know, it always feels a little bit intimidating to like host.
Yeah.
But I think backyard vibes make it feel a little bit easier.
We love coming to Susie's house. My children love it here. The food is always fantastic. However, this tri-tip might be next level.
I seriously love this specific moment when everybody actually sits down and gets to enjoy the food. I know it's a little bit of prep work and sometimes a little bit of stress to be ready to host. When you have some of these recipes in your back pocket, it doesn't have to be difficult or overwhelming or stressful. You can actually just enjoy the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's so excited. Look at her.
Right, that's why I love this.
I bribed your enthusiasm. Your turn. Host a party.
You.
Sparkling grape juice. Cheers.
I love sparkling grape
In my
juice.
grandma's china.
Cheers. That's even better.
If you're serious at all about smoking meat, the next Backyard BBQ Hero is a can't miss.
Well, I'm not mad at that at all.
That's because we're taking on the holy grail of barbecue smoked meats, the brisket. You may be thinking that brisket's too intimidating. I've got a special guest dropping by to help you take your brisket from sealed to served like a total pro. This is a very good day for me. We share not one, but 3 homemade pickle recipes, and I dust off an old family favorite that might be the perfect barbecue side. I'm so excited about this phase. Meet me in the backyard next time if you want to become a signature barbecue hero.